Well, welcome to episode 2 of season 9 of Changing the Game, where we're talking about Powerhouse marketing. If you missed our last episode with James Kaiser out of Montana and Gamma Wealth Partners, let us know. We can send you the Zoom link for that, or you can find that on our YouTube channel at Playmaker Coach. And all of our recordings are on there for your reference. I'm excited today to be joined with Mike Riggs. He's going to introduce himself in just a minute. And we still have one more segment coming up 2 weeks from today. So make sure you get that on your calendar as well. That'll be October 3rd with Bonnie Mangold. Some of you may have heard her speak at annual meeting. So I think she'll have a lot of great insights that she can go deeper on in our conversation around Powerhouse marketing. I'm your host, Jennifer Hensley with Playmaker Coaching and Consulting. I think I know most of you. But if not, I grew up in the field in Kansas City, where Mike's from, then moved to the Milwaukee area, worked at the home office for a number of years. And then I've been working with advisors independently for the last 5 to really help you stay on offense, be intentional in your practice, score more ideal clients, and create more raving fans. So excited to be here with you to give you some of those winning plays. And I know Mike and I have had some great conversations about the evolution of his practice over the last year. That I think you'll get a lot of those conversations. So thanks for being here, Mike. It's great to have you. Why don't you start us off with just a little bit of an introduction and background on your practice, and then we'll dive into our topic in 10.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Jen. It's a pleasure to be able to be here. Yeah, my practice, I've been in business about 6 years here. We're in the Kansas City area, as you mentioned, in the Sarnecki Network Office. And so I have, as far as the size of the practice, I have an investment team that we leverage, and I also have some, one personal staff member that as well that we have. And so over time, I think, one of the things that has kind of led into all of this is really being able to identify the type of clients that I want to work with. So currently today, the people that I find the most joy with and the people that I work with the most, add the most value to, are people that are, pre-retirement. They're looking for retirement distribution, that maybe have a few gray hairs like I do. And so, so that's a lot of what we do at this point in time. So
great. That gives a little bit of a context, and I'm sure you'll shed more light on that as we get into the conversation. So we want to start talking a little bit about transitions in your practice and everything, that evolution. And if you could talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced as, you looked at revamping your branding and online presence, and what's really worked for you, and what were some of the challenges that you faced? Dean, I think we're hearing you in the background, so I'm going to see if I could
get some thoughts on how I worked that room.
Line. Hang on just a second.
I took back what I said back. What let's like you guys can work the other half of the room or whatever. It's at.
Hang on just for a second.
I'm sorry, guys.
There we go.
there we go.
Okay. We'll get back to talking about your digital presence and kind of what prompted some of that transition. What were some of the challenges or things that you were facing in your business that led you to want to go down that road?
Yeah. So I think probably where this became apparent to me is I met with a client that's probably really more the type of clients that I want to work with, or prospective clients. And he made the comment in our first meeting. He said, "Hey, I researched you and got on your website and all that, and checked you out." And so I immediately felt this angst. I was like, wonder what he saw. Was that positive, or was that something that was, what was my branding like? And so it helped me to realize that some of the clients that I want to work with as I move on in my practice, I'm going to need to have an online presence that represents who I am, that represents the business that we are, because people who, if they're going to entrust you with their life savings, they're going to do a little research. And so it prompted me to say, hey, I need to take a look and see what else is out there.
Yeah, we're definitely in that world, right? Where we're all used to at our fingertips, being able to research things. I know a lot of times, like I'll go over to Amazon just because at least I can get that confirmation of like, is this a legitimate business? How many reviews do they have? What are other people saying? So you decided to go down this route based off of kind of that impetus that you got hearing from the clients as well. Tell us a little bit more about what the experience was of then once you started to dive into it, what was really easy? What were some of the roadblocks or challenges or things maybe you had to peel back a little bit more to kind of reframe your online presence?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of it is when I started getting into it, I did take a few minutes to take a look and see what was out there. And one of the things I realized is that I was very proud of being associated with Northwestern Mutual. People are good name recognition. People generally have a positive perspective at Northwestern, but there wasn't much about me. And so as we got into it, I think one of the biggest challenges, honestly, that you and I, Jen, worked through as we were working together is being able to kind of peel back those layers and understand, okay, what are the things that are most important to me? Who do I want to have as my primary client? What are my values and what are my goals? And so I think a sustainable brand image has got to be based on the things that are most important to me. And so I think that a lot of the questions and things that you asked helped me be able to dig into through a guided kind of questioning session to dive into some of the things that are the most important that we can then build on and make sure is represented in all the different platforms in a consistent way. So sometimes it's a lot of self-discovery, I guess, is what I felt.
So along those lines for, somebody else wants to go down this process and everything, what do you recommend? Like, how do they start to get started? If they're facing that point where it's like, maybe I don't know who that ideal client is, or I don't want to turn clients off. How did you find that you were able to lean into that and kind of owning, your own story and who you want to work with?
Yeah, and that is a challenge. I think as you initially get into this business, when I was, first, like I'm 6 years in, and so I felt a little envious of people that just seemed to know that right off the bat, but I didn't. And so I think part of that is identifying it, and I don't think we should overly. Branding can morph and change over time too. So if we don't completely understand that yet, I think we do still need to have a consistent image out there as we evolve over time. But for me, I think when I started looking at that, I started identifying who do I like to work with, who responds the most to what I'm doing, what are the parts of the business. And so for me, a lot of it was I really enjoyed the planning aspect of it. My training class was the first in our network office to start using PX. And so I followed that technology along as it came in. I really liked the technology and the way that it gives us a competitive advantage. And so the actual financial planning of it, the distribution side of the plan, which I feel like is an underserved part of, underserved type of need for people getting close to retirement, appealed to me. And then of course a lot of my peers are in that age group as well. And so I just identified over time this is a market that's an opportunity, but it's also one that I enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's part of when we went through some of the target market analysis, right? We're identifying like what are the things where you have energy around, what's the opportunity in that market, where are the aligned values that you have with those individuals. And ultimately I always say it's like that 80-20 rule, like so many things in life, right? It's like you're going to try to get 80% of the way there and know that there's still that other 20% that's going to probably continue to evolve. But you got to put your foot in the ground and say something, because if you say nothing, you leave it to everybody else to like make up their own stories, right? Versus trying to control that narrative of what do you want people to think about you? How do you want to kind of differentiate yourself in that sea of advisors that are out there, and what makes you different? So one of the things, now that you've been working on this, and I know part of the journey was testimonials and revamping your website and your social media profiles. And I know you're working on a DBA name as part of this still. At this point, what have you seen as like the payoff of what's made the investment and that that peeling back the onion and working on this worth it to you in your practice?
Well, there's been responses. I see people getting on the website and they comment on it. I see people getting on Google search and I get phone calls from that. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle as far as being able to get things all to align. My LinkedIn, but I think one of the results is that I'm proud of what I see out there. And one of the other goals that that was important to me is to be able to take people to my website and potentially even use that for a capabilities deck, to be able to introduce myself, a little bit of history behind me, our approach, what we do. And so that's been important because I think it provides legitimacy. It's like you can get on the Northwestern Mutual website that's got my face on it, and it explains things that are important to me. And so when I think about prospecting up, I start to think about getting into more of the clients that I want to get into. I'm proud of what they see online, and so that's important.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I always hear first and foremost. It's just like that confidence and everything and clarity in your own message and what's out there that's speaking to other people. And that's great that you've actually heard from some of them. So sometimes we feel like, is anybody even looking at this? But they are. So it's great when they really tell us about it as well and what they're seeing and how it stands out to them. As you talked about the process, I know you mentioned that you have a team member, Jordan. She was a part of the process. We worked together. Can you share a little bit more about the value of having multiple people involved in developing what that message is and helping to bring that to light?
Yeah, I think for me, Jordan was a sounding board as well. And I used other advisors and of course you and your team to be able to bounce ideas off of them. But I think as far as with Jordan too, I have her, handling a lot of the logistics as far as implementing things on the website or to be able to update things. She was very integral as far as getting all that stuff in place. And so we would talk about content, and but as far as getting things posted and getting the website updated, so I mean, it does help. I mean, I still do need to run a business and make everything happen as this goes along. So it was a challenge, but it did help having kind of a guided, more of a systematic approach to be able to address all these things.
Yeah, we say, at the beginning, it's your message. So certainly, you need to be kind of steering that, right? Of like, what do you want to communicate? What does excite you? Who gives you the most energy and that you can impact the most? But then how can we bring in the team to help kind of execute that and take some of that off of your plate so you don't have to be the one pushing all the buttons, like you said. I know the technology, you're good at technology and stuff, but what technology you really want to dive deep into, like PX versus maybe the website tool and some of those other systems that are out there. As a follow-up for that and everything, realize that a lot of advisors don't necessarily realize that they can do testimonials or there's a way to compliantly do those. Tell us a little bit more about why the testimonials have been so valuable for you and what you got out of having maybe those, getting that feedback from your clients.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting to be able to hear candid responses of what people need. But yeah, I had no idea that we could actually do that. I thought I heard someplace that we can't do testimonials, and maybe it was some sort of likes on LinkedIn or Facebook or something. I don't know. But the fact that we could get testimonials from clients from different segments, different types of, there may be different stages of their planning. That is valuable to have that out there on a website because, people look at it and it gives feedback from somebody, non-biased third party of what their experience was in working with us. So, but I think also it's a little awkward for me to call up and say, hey, tell me how much you like me. So I think having you call and ask them some questions and get some feedback and putting together a response like that's certainly helpful to be able to get that information from them.
Yeah, sometimes it's helpful. Other people can brag about us in a way that it's a little bit harder for us to do about ourselves or talk about it that way. One of my favorite things definitely to be able to do because they all love they love their experience working with you. And I think it also invests people a little bit in the process, right? Because now they're like, oh, how are you going to use this? And you're redoing your website. Like, oh, I can't wait to hear what it see it and hear it about it and everything. So they start to be more connected to, I think, the vision of the practice and being a part of that journey with you as well by bringing them in. So I should note that, from a compliance perspective, there are certain situations where you can't do it. If you have a 65, 66 IAR, there may be some things or somebody on your team does that may restrict it. But for many people, you can. And yeah, it used to be like, no testimonials. So I think there's still some of that unfortunately lingers, and people don't realize that that is an option. Certainly there's a compliance approval process, but there's ways to make that easier for you and easy for your clients. And I think that's what one of our main attempts was like, how do we make this as easy for both of you as possible, but to get a lot of value out of that experience. So something to always, think about when clients are having those moments where they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that, or that's so amazing, or you've been so helpful. Of sometimes just even striking while the iron's hot, and in that moment saying, hey, could we use what you just shared as a testimonial? I'll type it up and send it to you. That can be an easy way to do it, but you just have to be intentional, just like all the things we kind of talk about with marketing, of how do you bring it to the forefront. So the place we want to do when we talk about how do you do marketing intentional and everything, and we want to leave everybody with today is that practical, tip of, if they're thinking, hey, these are some of the things I want to do as well, but I'm not sure how to get started. What's that practical, like try it at work tip that other advisors or their teams could do in the next couple weeks to move forward with their own journey? What advice do you have for them, Mike?
Well, I would say, first of all, and I would do a bit of research on yourself, as if put yourself in the place of a client who would be considering doing work with you. Go out there and look at some of your platforms. Look at the website, look at LinkedIn, look at Facebook, and ask yourself, hey, is this attractive to me? Does this resonate with me? Does this reflect me? Does it say anything about me? A lot of those sort of things. And is it consistent across the platform? Am I giving a uniform message out there? And then the other thing is, I think, use the CRM tools. Get in there and take a look and say, hey, who are my best clients? And I think some key metrics are things like, what is my lifetime value of a given client? And so when you start looking at, and you consider the fact that most clients, if you're investment licensed, will buy from you over 20 years, you begin to take a look and see, hey, what is the actual lifetime value of adding one new client? And when you do that, then the next question is, what should I spend to acquire one new client? So you may say, hey, over the course of time, I may make $20,000 on this client in insurance and investments and all of that. Well, what is it worth to you to be able to acquire one more client like that? And then I think that helps guide the marketing, guide the events, and guide, what's needed to be able to get your website and your other online presence and what you're putting out there to be able to reflect you. And then some other things like share a pocket. I mean, how much of their business that you could do you have? And begin to look at those sort of things, put them out there. So I think take a look at your client base and identify who it is that you like to work with, and just make sure that your market segments are aligned with what your values are. And there's a lot of people that segment their clients different ways, but then if you identify who it is, then you can align your online marketing and all of that to appeal to those particular clients.
Yeah, I love that advice because, research yourself, you talk about the digital piece. I always think about kind of, you don't hear about it really anymore, but you used to have like the secret shoppers, right? Like that would come into a store and like kind of audit you. I kind of think about that of like, not just your digital presence, but the whole experience and journey as a client. If you were going through it, where are the points where you're like, ugh, I hate that I have to email for this and I can't just get this, or, this is unclear to me. What are those sticky points that you can help address, make more attractive, make more clear, more easy, as well as where you can use surprise and delight, something unexpected that really makes you stand out, that because we all have high expectations, I think, in the world we're in today, that we want things, we want it now, we want it easy. But when you do something that's a little bit above and beyond that surprises people, that's when you can really make a huge mark and a huge memory for them that they want to really tell other people about. And then the part where you talk about, understanding the data, looking at the data, there's a lot that's available. I know that can be overwhelming for people, but use your resources, use your peers, your connections, everything of, what can that data tell you to help you make some better decisions. We can tell you, yeah, on average in the industry, it's 5 to 7% or so around that as far as percent of revenue to think about from a marketing perspective. But I think the question, Mike, that you posed around, how much are you really willing to invest when you think about the lifetime value of just one new ideal client coming into your business is a great way to think about it, of then that return that you should be seeing from your marketing efforts. So we want to open it up to some questions. We've got a few minutes. I know Dean's with us and we have some other people that will be watching the replay and everything as well. Dean, you have any particular questions that you want to answer? Otherwise, we'll go into a couple other things.
Yeah, Michael, thank you for being here and doing those things. I think for me, the question that you asked, which was pretty thoughtful, or the recommendation you gave was what are you willing to spend for client acquisition for the lifetime of it, rather than thinking of it so transactionally that it's going to be a one-time thing. They're going to be repeat buyers and so forth. So as you kind of like define your own segment of clients, what are you doing to really give them that experience or be that person for them? And that 80-20 rule, is it truly that 20% that you're like spending the most time with? What are you doing with that 20% and how does that help your business? What does it look like?
Well, that's a $1 million question right there, is how we can more focus on that area. And so that's the process I'm going through now. Like the last year, we spent time identifying really who that client is and getting my segmentation cleaned up. So at this point in time, I've kind of moved more into fee-based planning, and I'm thinking more in terms of share of pocket. So if they have insurance, they have investments, they have a financial planner, how much of their money that they spend in those areas or business that's out there, how much of that do I have and how much of it is somewhere else? And how can I gain that additional amount from those folks? What would it take to be able to make me 100% of the amount of their pocketbook that they spend on services that I provide? And so I'm going back to some of the folks that I've met with over time. They've shown some trust. They've purchased some products, or they've rolled over some significant assets. And there's relationship there that I want to build on or maybe duplicate with a new client. I'm going back and really doing more comprehensive planning with those folks. And I think by providing that value, it's going to increase my share of pocket, but then it's also going to increase their rewards from what we do. And then hopefully be able to replicate them with their friends,
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, you guys do some things, correct me if I'm wrong and everything, but from I remember in terms of like client experience with, certain milestones or ways that you connect with your clients to stay top of mind, to, recognize things that are important that are going on in their life and everything throughout the year, things along those lines as well. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that side of things also.
Yeah, so I do the typical things where on their birthdays, I'll send a handwritten birthday card. For new clients that we get, I write out in very nice handwritten card with a wax stamp on it for thanking them for being new clients. Send them a little gift card, that sort of thing. So there's some new client things that we do, and then birthdays, and then of course. At the age changes, reconnecting with them consistently that way. But we also monitor what's going on in Facebook with our clients. Somebody has a new baby, somebody buys a new home. There are things that in the Northwestern system, if they're wanting to buy a new home, we send out different other helpful things. If we get wind of that, like there's toolkits that we can send to them that help people think through things about buying a new home, or life stage type things. And we've sent gifts for new babies. So that's part of the marketing effort is staying current. And quite honestly, that's where Jordan comes in, is to pay attention to those things, or as I see them, forward them over, so that we can do something special to stay relevant. And those are also opportunities where they may need to, if somebody has a baby, they have generally an increased death benefit need. And they've got, maybe they want to start a college 529 plan for them or something like that. There's ways that we can help as they move through life through these stages. So,
you know, one of the questions I want to ask you about too was, Mike, I think you're one of the most authentic people that I've worked with, you know, that, and just so genuine and everything. And I know sometimes when people are thinking about advisors of like what to share, or how much of their story to share, or what they're comfortable with, they're not sure, you know, how to, you know, be authentic, you know, online, or what they want to do in that space. So can you share a little bit about, you know, how you feel like being able to share more of your story and who you are and your values and everything has been something that you think has been helpful to lean into?
yeah, I do think I've heard a few different things where advisors will say, well, hey, I want my clients to be clients of the firm, right? Thinking as relationships move on and sustainability and all of that. But the truth is that people want to do financial planning with people that they know. They're buying from people buy from a person, and a person that they like, not from an organization. And so we've always got to make things personal. So I guess I feel like, so if I share, you know, on one of our pages, it says about me, about Mike, and has a lot of my history and some of the things that are relevant. I guess when I think about it is, if I can portray out there the things that help me be grounded, that show integrity, show work ethic, show family, show continuity, we begin to understand things about a person if we know. It's kind of like with an employer. Why do they look on Facebook? To see what all your posts are before they hire you. Well, you're defined as you're represented somewhat by those you're around. So putting my family picture out there where they can see my kids, they can see, you know, I share a little bit about my family history in the nursery business and all of that. So for instance, I had a guy that I met with, he's, I think, going to be a very good client last week. And when I met with him for lunch, he said, hey, I got on your Facebook. I had no idea you were in the ministry for a while. So he clearly, the only place that's out there is he went through my website, he clicked on about Mike, and he went through and looked at all the history that we put out there. But it told him something that he felt a connection to. And so that's the whole point, I think, of having that research for people.
Yeah, the whole know, like, and trust. We know that's still huge, to be able to establish that and do that quickly for the people that we want to connect with. So appreciate your time this morning. Remember, Mike's try it at work tip of think about that, of doing that research on if you were stepping in your client's shoes, what would you see? How would you think about things, as well as understanding some of the analytics around that lifetime value. If you're interested in additional resources from our conversation, you can check out our score assessment. We'll put that in the resources and send that out to everybody, give you a better sense of where you are at today and maybe where you have some opportunities in the marketing space, and always open to having a conversation if you'd like to dive deeper in that. Remember to join us in 2 weeks when we'll have Bonnie Mangold back on October 3rd at noon. She's a 2-star Pathfinder, has, I believe, relocated offices. So she's had to do some rebuilding of her firm in different places. And she does these really cool Jeffersonian dinners that I think is just one of the interesting things that you're going to hear about from our conversation around Powerhouse marketing when we get back together. Before we wrap it up, Mike, as a token of appreciation, we'd love to be able to support an organization you're passionate about. What's a charitable cause that we can donate to for your time that you shared with us today?
Hope Worldwide is a organization that helps with disaster relief and does some really special things overseas. So
yeah, I'm familiar with them. A great organization. Well, happy to support them. Thanks again for your time. We'll make sure to send out the recording, and all the highlights from the convocation will be on social media over the next couple of weeks. So if you're not following us, make sure to follow us there as well. We'd love to hear what you got out of today's conversation and what you put into action in the next few weeks. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.